Volodymyr, thanks a lot for your warm introduction and for being quite persistent in inviting me to join this conference. I'm curious about what was yesterday in the program, and I hope the sessions and the keynotes will be available in the record, and I will have an opportunity to listen to them. And sure. From my side, I'm so happy to contribute with my short presentation and invite you all who are here now to a conversation around the suggested topic within the coming 40 minutes. So hopefully you can see the screen demonstration in my slides.
Yes, we can see that.
Okay, so we can proceed. Well, this 7 years boy sitting in the last row of the Kharkiv school is me. 1991, a new life for me started, and no doubt that all of you have pretty the same picture somewhere in your family archive. At AdCamp Ukraine, we place our first grade photos on the business cards as a reminder to ourselves and the partners about our work's core aim to make a better education for the young generation in Ukraine. I can even show you a proof. So this is my card and the same picture there. And you know what? When I was preparing to meet you today, I decided to check my family photo collection and found out the picture from the school alumni album you can see on the slide. I counted that in the school period, I was educated by 57 teachers. 57 adults invested their efforts in my education. So I'm very lucky. I'm very lucky to have these people in my life who supported my growth from a little boy who loved math, literature, and playing during the breaks, to a PhD holder in science, inspired behind the largest community of educators in Ukraine, advisor to 3 ministers of education and science of Ukraine, as Volodymyr mentioned, the co-author of the new Ukrainian school concept and the state standards, co-developer of the new model of teachers' professional development. And what is most important, happy husband and the father of 2 girls. The quality of an education system cannot exceed the quality of its teachers. And this is one of my most favorite quotes, originally from PISA founder Andres Schleicher. By the way, Andres Schleicher is a great friend of AdCamp Ukraine community, and you can find his talks on the last anti-crisis online AdCamp. This particular quote was attributed in the famous McKinsey report. You can see the link to this report in the bottom of the slide. And 2 things about sustainable education, which I believe still remain actual even after 13 years, are the following. So educational reforms need time and stable political will to deliver a result, 6 years on average. And the second thing is that teachers and instruction should be in the core of the change. And now I will illustrate briefly the impact of these principles applied by the AdCamp Ukraine community to support, on the one hand, the new Ukrainian school reform development, and on the other hand, the process of rethinking how teachers can learn in Ukraine. So, what is an AdCamp? I like this story. It's all started in 2010 when 11 secondary school teachers enjoying their coffee and brainstorming what they can do with ineffective professional development opportunities in the United States gathered together. By the way, 90% of American teachers are not satisfied with the professional development services provided by the government. And with this small talk 10 years ago, a worldwide movement started. When you approach Americans from the founder company at the AdCamp Foundation and ask to share what is an AdCamp, they always start their story that this is an initiative which was supported at the early stage by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And this is a symbolic thing because only true innovations and real changes are supported by this kind of organizations. From that moment, 46, yes, this is the right number, countries around the world joined the movement. And we are proudly marked in the Finnish rating of innovations named 100 among top 100 educational solutions which were to be spread in 2019, 2020, and maybe even in 2021. I need to check it on the 100 website. And 4 years later, after the original idea in 2014, with the revolution of dignity in Ukraine, the AdCamp Ukraine story started. It started with the one short email of interest, which was prepared and sent by me, and we've written a $4 book bought on Amazon Kindle. From this moment, I remember when we conducted the first national conference in June 2015 with 325 participants, we managed to grow to a community of 34,000 Ukrainian secondary school teachers, which is around 5% of all teachers in Ukraine. Currently in Ukraine, we have 440,000 teachers working in schools. On the one hand, 5% is not a lot. Symbolically, we name our AdCampers also as white crows. This is why you can see a lot of white crows on my slides. It's Ukrainian equivalent for English black sheep, meaning that these educators are different because they are open to new experience. They want to take part in sharing this experience and learn from each other. So generally, AdCamp is a discussion based on conference as a format for experience exchange. To understand what is an AdCamp, of course, you can watch the video through this link or read about us on Wikipedia. But my recommendation is to visit AdCamp at least once in your life to understand how everything works. So we covered now 5% of all teachers, but what is more important that in AdCamp Ukraine community, we have every second school represented from Ukraine. In Ukraine, there are around 17,000 schools, and in average, 3 persons per school are taking quite active participation in AdCamp Live. Of course, you can ask how this innovative format is effective in the sphere of professional development of teachers, and we have some answers. You can examine our AdCamp Ukraine report for the last 3 years and find some data. I will just mention one of them, that 80% of our AdCampers managed to implement in their classrooms at least one idea that they learned during the event. And I think this is quite a great result. One of the things we are also very proud is about that AdCamps are regionally offline formats, because it's important to have this magic, the moment of meeting each other. But now we are all in the situation with COVID, and we have to move all of our activities online at schools and generally anywhere with public events. And what I can say, and this is mentioned in the article, I see that there is a mistake on this slide, sorry for that. The article on OECD resource, which describes the experience of the AdCamp communities in the States and Ukraine, and how they managed to support the educator communities in coronavirus crisis time. And I'm very happy that this experience is attributed there as the one worth to be spread around the world, and I think the only one from Ukraine. New Ukrainian school reform. Ukrainian people judge this reform as one of the most successful reforms which originated after the revolution of dignity in Ukraine, and you can find a lot of proofs for this fact. By the way, one of the proofs is in the monitoring results available through the link on this slide to show the first year of this reform implementation around Ukraine. This whole story started in 2016, and briefly, if you are not acquainted with the idea of this reform, the key thing you need to understand about the new Ukrainian school is that it is about key competencies for living in an educated society. And this is a profound, tremendous change for decades. First time in our history. When you look at the concept of the new Ukrainian school, on one of the pages you can find the new Ukrainian school formula. It consists of 10 key components. It is student-oriented. It provides new content and new structure. It's based on partnership pedagogy. Of course, the motivated teachers are important when you approach this reform. It's about autonomous schools, value-based development, modern educational setting, and fair funding and equal access. From 2016 till 2020, a lot of legislative work was conducted, including the new bills on education, on general secondary education, and of course, providing the new state standards of curriculum and professional standards adaptation. So all these ideas, which were basically just described in 2016, now are partly implemented, and we are in this process. You know that all first, second, and third graders in Ukraine are now the students of the new Ukrainian schools. And I have a hope that we will manage to implement this first perspective mentioned in the McKinsey report and to have enough political will to continue this reform and to see the fruits of these changes. And now I want to bring your attention again back to AdCamp ideas, which are described in this white paper below, and about, I think, 4 secret recipe components of the professional development approach implemented in AdCamp model that inspires countries around the world, and Ukraine in particular. By the way, I forgot to mention that AdCamp Ukraine community is named as the second largest AdCamp community after the States community, and we are very proud for that. So while the community in Ukraine was growing, we started thinking about the way how to scale the success of this recipe to the whole Ukrainian system. Because we believe that professional development model should be assessment, community, and knowledge, as well as learner-centered. What are these words about? So when we say that the professional development is assessment-centered, we mean that it allows teachers to receive feedback and improve the efficiency of their classroom work. So it is bind with their real school experience. Community-centered professional development allows building strong connections and find support during the introduction of new ideas to the learning process. So it gives an opportunity for every teacher to feel that they are not alone, so that they are actually not these white crowns, as it showed previously on the slides. When we say that the professional development is knowledge-centered, we mean that it includes relevant information, actual information provided to teachers based on their real needs, not on the topics which are of interest for the people who come and deliver these services to teachers, but what they really need in their current educational routine. Learner-centered professional development systems or models are those where teachers can choose certain aspects of their professional development or even participate in their creation. So they are active people in the decision process. So all of these four requirements are implemented in AdCamp model. And I'm very happy that now they are implemented generally in the whole professional development model for Ukraine. And this story started in 2018 with the joint initiative of the Ministry of Education and Science of Ukraine and AdCamp Ukraine Public Organization with the survey. So at the first stage, we needed to collect data, and the whole process of collecting this data and the survey results and reports and feedbacks and media publications about this are available on the web page, accessible through the link on this slide. 9,000 teachers' voices stated a lot of important facts, and some of them are the following. So 87% of teachers are motivated to develop professionally by their own desire to grow as teachers. Why it is important? So the first driver, the first motivator is not because the professional development is a requirement, or it's not because the professional development can give a boost in the career, or it's not because it can bring a salary rise. 87% of Ukrainian educators feel that they want to develop professionally because they want to grow for themselves, for their students. So this is a good news. 79% of teachers believe that the current professional development system must be reformed. It must be changed in very many aspects. And now the bad fact, a very unfortunate fact, 41% of Ukrainian secondary school teachers have not received support in their professional development in the past year when the survey was conducted. So no support activities on all levels. What is most important on the school level, from their administration and from their colleagues. Also, I can share with you top 5 areas. About 40% they have need to be taught in these areas. The first is foreign languages. The second is cross-cutting capabilities or soft skills, in other words. The third is the professional burnout prevention. The fourth is creating new educational settings. And the fifth is integrating kids with special educational needs. So as you see, all of these topics are not about just subject professional development. They are all on the level of soft skills and cross-cutting. Of course, you can find much more data available on this web page, but particularly this survey gave us all the data to proceed with the whole change in professional development system. And now in 2020, we can be really proud for ourselves because we can celebrate a new model which is operating currently in Ukraine. It took us about 2 intensive years of legislative work to create a mechanism based on these 3 fundamental principles, which you can see on the slide: deregulation, decentralization, and integrity. In Ukrainian, it sounds a little bit better because all these 3 words are starting with D letter, доброчесність, I mean. What this model is all about, I will mention 4 key principles, and you can find a lot much more in our joint online course, which will be launched, I think, in January 2021 at one of the most famous online platforms in Ukraine called Prometheus, with all the details. But now for you just to feel this kind of change. So first time in Ukrainian history, teachers are allowed to plan their professional development autonomously. So they decide where, when, on which topics they can grow. This is very important. Of course, they consult with their colleagues, with their school administration, and they try to build together the individual plan of their personal professional growth, and at the same time, the joint plan for the school team growth. But basically, they are the decision makers where they want to grow. The second thing is the principle that money follows the teacher. It's very important that from central budget and local budgets, every year teachers receive a certain amount of money which they can use to implement their personal plan of growing, of professional development. The third thing is about the monopoly of the state institutes for advanced training, which is now cancelled. And that means that all organizations in Ukraine, of course, the institutes of postgraduate education, but not only them, can provide these services to educators. I mean the public organization, I mean the business organizations, I also mean the private entity entrepreneurs, and the last thing, which I'm very proud to mention, that these kind of services can be provided by educators themselves in a peer-to-peer format. So from educators to educators. And you don't need even to have a certain legislative form for doing this. And this is a huge change. And believe me, as I work a lot with teachers, I know that our teachers have a lot of experience to share to each other. The fourth thing in this model of changes is about the range of topics, types, and forms for professional development. It increased dramatically. And now a lot of new topics or ways for professional development are accessible to Ukrainian educators. Colleagues, of course, I need to be frank with you and to say that we are still running this marathon of changes. Of course, we can celebrate some victories, but we have a lot of challenges. I would like to share with you some of them. The first challenge is that when a school or a teacher receive freedom, sometimes they don't know how to use it. It's hard to act in these new circumstances where you are responsible for your own professional growth. And this is about the lack of preparedness among schools to the bureaucratic part of this autonomy. The second thing is, of course, the pressure of all formats and procedures, because all of the stakeholders of this process need time to adapt to this new reality. I cannot forget to mention the budget crisis of 2020, which is caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, because we lost all of this money which were expected to follow teachers in 2020, but hopefully next week the new budget will be voted and signed, and we will receive this money back for the next year. There is a risk of providing low quality services, because when a lot of new organizations or personalities on the market and a lot of freedom, there is always such a risk. And there is a risk of unfair certificates distribution. I mean the certificates on professional development. Unfortunately, we know a lot of stories when educators are more concentrated on receiving a certificate than on actually the learning process. And the last thing to mention among the challenges is that we do not have one-stop shop for the sector of professional development. In other words, there is no resource online or offline available where educators, schools, or professional development service providers can come and learn what is available in Ukraine, where I can go, how I can grow, etc. And by the way, the last thing about this one-stop shop, this is actually one of the initiatives we are going to implement early next year. And hopefully in April, Ukraine will get this kind of supporting online platform.